All right, this is the Voice of Morgantown podcast. I'm Tyler Pepe.
And I'm Brandon Cork, and this is a WVU sports podcast by two suffering WVU fans.
All right, we're going to do it a little different tonight. Today, we are going to record 2 episodes, so be sure to check out both. First, we are going to discuss WVU's dominant victory over Towson, and then we are going to be joined by our good friend Giovanni to cover the Virginia Tech Hokie matchup on Thursday night. So once again, be sure to listen to our interview with him after this episode. So let's get into it. Our Mountaineers got their first win of the season against FCS opponent Towson by the score of 65-7. Absolutely dominant performance. It does feel good to have a showing like that. Obviously, we shouldn't get too excited or overhype ourselves, but you got to take a win whenever you can. And the Mountaineers absolutely needed something to feel good about after 2 tough losses to start the year. But my overall thoughts, WVU did exactly what they should have done. They scored a lot of points against a weaker opponent. They shut down Towson on defense, which is nice to see for how our defense started the year. And it was good to see the defense have a solid performance. The offense didn't have to punt the ball once the entire game. But overall, I do kind of feel like this is a little reminiscent of the Long Island game last year. It doesn't tell you a whole lot of how we'll perform against other opponents. But to look at it in a positive light, a lot of backups got playing time. All 4 quarterbacks played and played well. So yeah, it's good to see the starters kind of get a chance to rest up before that Black Diamond Trophy matchup on Thursday. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the one thing that I was probably most disappointed about was not seeing the young guys play as much. Jacoby Spells had 34 snaps, which is good, but according to PFF, it looks like Mumu Bin Wahad only got 8. Andrew Wilson's Lamp got 18, and Ruffin, Floyd, and Ajayi both played, or all 3 played the most snaps of anyone on the defense. And, Ruffin, Floyd, and Ajayi were 3 guys that I was hoping to see, less of, because I feel like we kind of know what they are and what they bring to the table. Where I really kind of wanted to see what the other 3 guys, younger guys, could bring and potentially improve in the secondary.
Yeah, they did switch some stuff up. They moved some guys around on the defense, like X-Ray Low took Dixon's spot, and then they put Dixon at the spear position. You were saying earlier, it seemed like Dixon didn't get a ton of snaps, though. We were at the game, so sometimes that can be a little hard to tell who's in and who's out at certain times. So I didn't realize Dixon hardly played at all, according to PFF. But Sean Martin started the game, which seemed like a no-brainer, really. I mean, he's been playing well all year, so I'm glad they gave him a chance to start. I was expecting to see Spells and Mumu in there from the get-go. I know they played some in the first half, but I don't believe they started the game. But regardless, it seemed like Spells got a lot of snaps. I know you got the number right in front of you there. I forget what it is off the top of my head. But overall, I'm glad defense got a lot of guys in there. They played great. They allowed 0 points. I know Townsend had 7, but everyone needs to remember that was on a kickoff return. So our defense was absolutely dominant. They allowed under 100 passing yards, under 100 rushing yards. So truly just the perfect performance from the defense. Again, let's not overreact. Obviously, that's what you should do against an opponent like that. But they needed a good outing. They needed something to make them feel good going into this tough stretch of games they have coming up here. And so, yeah, I mean, overall, I was very happy what I saw on defense. How about you?
So for the defense, I definitely thought that they did what was expected. I think with coming in against Towson, it was kind of easy to expect the defense to look better. I'm still not sure if they are better or not, though. The defensive line always continues to look good. Jordan Jefferson had a tremendous game. I do like that they were experimenting with different things. But even though Spells did play a decent amount, and they did kind of switch guys in and out a little bit more, it was kind of hard to tell, at least from, being at the game and then looking back at the snap counts that are unofficial at this time, how much some of the young guys got to play against first team Towson players or alongside other first team West Virginia starters. So, I'm happy that the defense looked good and we didn't get shredded by Towson, but by no means do I think that, this makes me feel better about our defense moving forward, because this is the way we should play against Towson, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you, and that is kind of how I feel. I mean, it was a very impressive performance, how much we scored, how dominant the defense was. But yeah, I'm with you. Like I keep saying, we got to kind of keep expectations where they belong. One thing that is a bit of a concern was kickoff coverage and allowing that touchdown. I know it was just one play, but Neil Brown even alluded to it in his press conference that WVU had this issue last year with giving up bad field position due to bad kickoff coverage. And we thought that we took care of that by getting that kid from Florida State. And honestly, I thought he did pretty well the first couple games, but, wasn't really putting it in the end zone against Towson. So, I mean, I hope that doesn't rear its ugly head again. Our defense is going to need all the help they can get this year, it seems like, with good field position. So I hope that's not a reoccurring problem. He number 0, I think his name was Hunter. I hope I'm right about that. He was very shifty. And so, I mean, I'm not taking any credit away from him. He seemed like a talented player, but that's really the only concern I had about the game overall was kickoff coverage. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest concern, I don't think the coverage was bad on the return for a touchdown, obviously, but, Grotehouse not being able to kick it into the end zone consistently is definitely a concern, because that's the whole reason he was brought in. It kind of makes me wonder too, like, because the first few times when he wasn't kicking it into the end zone, because sometimes special teams coach will say, okay, kick it over to this side, kick it short, make him return it, whatever, if they feel like the person returning isn't a threat and they have a better chance of getting their field position. But it didn't seem like that was the case. There was really no wind in the stadium, at least looking at the flags on the field goal post. So it didn't seem like he was kicking into wind. And it was just kind of really strange to see him struggle to get it to that back line. Our teams where we're going to have to do that. And if he's not the person, the other kickers get a shot. I know we have like 2 or 3 different punters. We have 2 different kickers. Maybe give them a shot, but you definitely need to get special teams, ironed out. I feel like over the past couple of years it's gotten better, but you just can't have lapses at all. You just need to make the tackle when you can, especially with the way how conservative we play. Sometimes that can be the straw that breaks the camel's back and ultimately ends up to us losing a game. And luckily that happened in Towson. So hopefully the special teams coaches can get together and figure out how to, ensure that they have the right guy kicking the ball off, as well as everyone is staying in their lanes and making need to.
Yeah, 100%. I'm with you. But taking it back to the positive of that game, let's talk about the offense a little bit. Like I said earlier, 0 punts. The Mountaineer offense came away with points on every possession. And so it doesn't really get any better than that. All 4 quarterbacks played, all 4 scored a touchdown. Daniels, Crowder, Nico all got passing touchdowns. Green scored one with his legs. That shouldn't come as a surprise. He's a very good runner. So just nothing but good things to say about the offense. Mathis and Donaldson ran for over 100 yards apiece. And I like the fact that the wide receivers got a lot of good work in. We saw Cortez Braham. We saw Jeremiah Aaron getting a lot of good reps, and they look good. So I thought that was very encouraging. What did you think about the offense?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the offense played really well, as they kind of should have, once again, kind of following that theme. But, the thing that I was most excited to see is that they were, getting the ball to Caden Prather there a little bit more early. It's good to get him confidence because he is young and he is really talented. So the faster that you can get him confidence and, beating people and, kind of reassuring that he's capable of beating guys on every play, the better, because he can be as good, if not better, than Bryce Ford Wheaton by the time his career is over, because I think, that type of player. I know some people kind of complain about it, but I do like the way that they are sprinkling in, or they're splitting up carries between the 3 backs. I would like to see Justin Johnson Jr. more. I definitely think he deserves it because he brings a completely different style of running and, pass catching ability than Tony Mathis and CJ Donaldson. But, I don't want to see Tony Mathis getting 100% of the carries, which he didn't. I don't want to see CJ Donaldson getting 100% of the carries because I don't think he's there yet. But, splitting the carries between the three of them is definitely the best way to go. And then just playing the hot hand. And then as far as, the backups go, I liked what I saw. Jeremiah Aaron probably is the one who popped off the page most for me. He showed some really good hands, and he's supposed to be one of the most athletic guys on the team too. So if he can, use that athleticism to stretch the field, as well as continually, make some of those tough grabs that he was doing during the game, I definitely think he could be a real weapon, and he should be someone at least who should be pushing for that number 3 wide receiver spot because, while Reese Smith has been out there, he hasn't really been producing. So I feel like that job's up in the air, and I think Jeremiah Aaron could really help fill that spot that Winston Wright left whenever he transferred to Florida State.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I'd love to see him get some more snaps. And I don't know if his low snap counts is just because they think he's not ready. I mean, he hasn't been there as long as Reese Smith, so maybe they feel like there's not as much confidence. But I feel like we are going to see his snaps go up as the year goes on, just because I do think he's very talented. I mean, he tore up in JUCO last year, not only at wide receiver, but special teams. But also, a big shout out to Preston Fox. He had a nice touchdown from Nico and made a nice grab. So I didn't want to move on from the wide receivers without mentioning his name. I like what you said about the halfbacks, though. Honestly, the only guy on offense who didn't have a good day was Justin Johnson. But I'm with you. I think Justin Johnson has produced in big time games. I mean, it's not like he's put up monster numbers, but I feel like when he does get a handoff or get a catch, he does play well. So I'm fine with him getting some touches out there. Neil Brown has already talked about it, and even CJ Donaldson talked about it a little bit. He's just not in running back shape to handle 100% of the workload. So I feel like we're definitely going to see running back by committee for the rest of this year, which, hey, I'm absolutely fine because I think all three are very capable. So talking about these quarterbacks a little bit, I know this is kind of like a played out thing that people talk about, but I think it's worth bringing up again. After watching all 4 quarterbacks play, obviously JT's your starter, but I don't necessarily see Garrett Green as a Power 5 quarterback, like a full-time quarterback. I would love to see him, maybe have packages or stuff here and there, like we saw last year a little bit. But I don't see him being able to just be a full-time quarterback at any point in his West Virginia career. But he's so talented. If you get him the ball in open space, he's proven that he can make people miss. And so I think it's worth asking, would you want to see a position change from Garrett Green? And if so, where do you put him? We've talked about how talented these wide receivers are. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think with Garrett Green, his size definitely holds him back, and I definitely don't think this is the right offense for him. I think a lot of the get so much hype from fans is that people are nostalgic about, what Pat White did during his career here. And, having a running quarterback is always fun and it's electrifying and it's exciting. But if you look at the offenses operate today and you look at what, WVU's kind of built to do, while Garrett Green does bring a level of excitement to it, having him play 4 quarters, I just don't think is a winning formula. He's going to make mistakes. He's going to turn the ball over. He's going to have the ball batted down at the line of scrimmage because he is, maybe 5'10", 5'11", on a good day. But I mean, I think you look at Will Crowder. Will Crowder looked really good. He was precise. He had some running ability, and obviously Nico looked good as well for his, being a true freshman playing in a Power 5 conference. Even though it was against an FCS school, he did show, good pocket presence. He did show the ability to, get the ball to where it needed to go, and he did have a nice touchdown pass. So, while Garrett Green, I think, does serve a role as maybe like a trick play package type quarterback. If he does want to play quarterback, I don't think it's going to be necessarily at a Power 5 school. And if it is, it would have to be a very option heavy school. But the other 2 guys, I definitely think have the ability to take over from JT Daniels, whether that's next year or the year after that, because I think, their combination of being solid athletes as well as having the arm talent to really get the ball to, like you said, the talented wide receivers that we've had are there with those two other guys.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I mean, of course everyone loves Garrett Green. I love it when he comes out there. He's exciting. He makes plays in open space like we keep saying. He's a great runner. But like you said, over 4 quarters, I feel like Big 12 defenses would strategize against that. They would just know that he can't throw the ball very well, and they would just, spy the quarterback and keep him in the pocket. But I mean, if he comes out for some gadget plays, I'd still be excited about that. I honestly think he would tear up as a quarterback in JUCO or maybe a lower level, Division I college school. But yeah, at West Virginia, I don't see him being much more than just, a special package quarterback. Because if JT Daniels gets hurt at any point, I see Will Crowder probably taking over at quarterback, maybe even Nico if he keeps developing. But I mean, I feel like people sleep on Crowder a lot. He was 6 for 6, and it seems like every time he gets the chance, he seems to impress.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I think with Crowder, I think the coaches probably don't talk about him a lot, but I think, maybe it's kind of like a hidden weapon sort of thing. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it's you don't want to talk about him in a way where you're overshadowing Nico because he's the shiny new toy and Nico has all the hype in the world. So you don't want to urge him. And also with Garrett Green, he's kind of the number two, just I think, because he brings a different element to the game. Like you said, I think if JT Daniels were to go down, I do think it would be Will Crowder, and I think he would do just fine. Now, by just fine, do I mean he would be able to do the things that JT Daniels is doing now? I don't think so. I don't think he'd be able to run the offense as well, but I do think that, we'd still be a solid offense. He would still make his mistakes. He would still have some growing pains, but I like everything about him in terms of, physical build, his attributes, his athleticism, all those things look good to me. So I agree with you that I do think Will Crowder would probably be the next guy up, or should be the next guy up should JT Daniels go down.
Yeah, I'm with you. I heard Neil Brown talking about something in his press conference that made me think of this question. He talked about how once Lynn J Dixon transferred out is when he really started considering CJ Donaldson, at tailback. I mean, it was always in the back of their mind. They knew he was well-rounded and could play lots of different places. But once they only were down to 3 scholarship running backs, that's when they really, wanted to entertain the idea. And so that made me think of this question. Is Lynn J Dixon transferring out the greatest thing that could have ever happened to this team? Because without that, I mean, who knows? Maybe we don't have CJ Donaldson at tailback right now. So what do you think?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I never thought about that till you brought it up, and it's the truth. I mean, unfortunately, I think Lynn J Dixon did open the door for CJ Donaldson quite a bit. I mean, he wouldn't have, CJ Donaldson would not have been on my radar unless the coaches talked about him. I always thought he was a tight end. I thought, he had good high school numbers for a tight end. He was a little small. I mean, 6'2" isn't big for a tight end, but that's big for a running back. And 240 pounds on top of that is big for a running back. And even when they said, like I said before, that they were going to move him running back, I was thinking, like an H-back type guy. And I was wrong about every single one of those things. And I'm not disappointed about that at all. But, Lynn J Dixon is kind of an enigma. I mean, um, in spurts did really well at Clemson, but, I feel like he's just in his head too much. And, for being the guy who's supposed to come here and be our home run hitter, he opened the door for another guy who kind of unexpectedly be our home run hitter in CJ Donaldson.
Yeah. Yeah, and well put. One more thing that we wanted to talk about is I don't know if you caught this, but former West Virginia player Sam Brown, who now plays down at Houston with Dana Holgerson, he committed a bad unsportsmanlike penalty and got absolutely lit up by one of his teammates on the sideline. Joseph Manjack came over and just tried pushing him over, but then Sam Brown grabbed his face mask and it was just a big scuffle on the sideline. Dana Holgerson said at his press conference they got over it. They ended up making up, which I believe him. I mean, teammates get heated. But I just thought that was interesting. Our former player, our former coach has this big blow up on the sideline. So, I mean, obviously Dana wasn't involved. I didn't want that to sound weird, but just all the former Mountaineers involved. Did you happen to catch that?
No, I didn't, but it kind of makes me wonder about Sam Brown and his time here if he's, that hot-headed because, you know, to be honest, we never really heard anything like was at WVU, but looking back, just watching practice tapes and different things of what Sam Brown was doing in practice. I remember, I think it was last year we were talking about it before he transferred that, why isn't he getting more reps at wide receiver? He looked really good in practice, and albeit it is practice, it really doesn't matter that much. But some of the catches he was making was outstanding. He looked fast. He looked like a great route runner. It looked like he was the whole package, and he just wasn't getting time. And his first year here, I think it was the COVID year, maybe, where he got time here and there, and he looked okay. Um, but he never really kind of stuck. And I think other people have mentioned it before, but of all the players who transferred, how many of those players were players that were kind of nudged out the door? So with Sam Brown not playing and kind of seeing some behavioral issues with him on the field, it kind of makes me wonder if there's a reason why Sam Brown didn't stick around with the program. If, maybe he was just a bad egg. And, it might be a little bit more telling about some of these guys like your Lynn J Dixons, your Darrell Middletons, your Sam Browns potentially as guys who just aren't great team players and kind of disrupt the chemistry and just get shown the door. And that's how they end up in the transfer portal. So maybe it's reading between the lines a little bit too much, but that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind when I hear that.
Yeah. And it might have just been, two teammates being heated because it was a bad penalty to take at that time. And Dana Holgerson had a lot of good things to say about Joseph Manjack, saying that he'll be a future captain at Houston. So, maybe he's just one of the team leaders who wasn't going to allow the new guy to come in and, cost his team a game. So, I looked up Sam Brown's stats so far, no catches down in Houston, but I wish him all the best. I mean, he seemed like a very talented guy. And no ill will towards him or Dana. I don't mind seeing Dana win in Houston. I know a lot of WVU fans like get happy and gleeful to see him fail, but I don't mind seeing Houston do all right down there. But
Yeah.
another former player that I want to mention is Allie Jennings. We didn't mention him on the last podcast, but he's been tearing up down at Old Dominion. And I think that was more of just he wanted more playing time. And, he was young when he transferred out and he just wasn't getting it at WVU. But I just wanted to give him a little shout out for having a nice year so far down at Old Dominion.
Yeah, I mean, it sometimes it works out. That's what the transfer portal's for. I feel like when Allie was here, we had a lot of wide receiver talent. Obviously, a lot of it is either left or graduated. But at the time, thinking about guys like we just talked about, Sam Brown, but also Winston Wright, Sam James, Bryce Ford Wheaton, others that I'm probably forgetting who were all ahead of him in the depth chart. And that's a pretty talented wide receiver room. So when you're a young guy and you're battling against guys who are maybe a little bit older, maybe a little bit more physically developed than you, it could be frustrating. And the transfer portal allows players to go to a situation where they can get more playing time. Find guys who are, maybe a year older than them or the same age and have to sit on the bench and have to, wait forever to get playing time. So, I'm happy for him. That's awesome that he's doing that well. And hopefully, maybe he gets a shot in the NFL. I know with Old Dominion, how much NFL scouts would be looking at what he's doing there and saying, this is a top 3 round guy, but as a 5th or 6th round pick, I'm sure that someone might take a flyer on him when the time comes. And, we'll see what happens with him in the future.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And that's really all I got for the recap of Townsend. You got anything else to throw in?
I did want to bring up, since we were on the topic of Houston and Dana, you know, the fact that Houston lost to Kansas, and Kansas once again looked like they just took care of business. And you kind of have to remember that Houston, maybe they were overrated coming into the season, but they were a top 25 team. Um, and Kansas went in there and took care of business. Jalen Daniels, once again, we are not becoming Kansas Jayhawks podcast, just going there, but I am a fanboy for Jalen Daniels. He had a tremendous game. I mean, the guy could end up being, if he keeps going at this rate, he could end up being someone who's a dark horse contender for Big 12 Player of the Year. He's such a tremendous player, and it makes me feel a little bit better seeing him continue that streak of dominance against Houston, because Houston did have some kind of clout behind them by experts, and we know how wrong experts are all the time. But it's going to be interesting to follow Kansas for the rest of the season, because they are 3-0 and they're halfway to bowl eligibility. And I think even if Kansas gets bowl eligible, that's a huge step forward for that program. And it makes the loss to WVU's loss to Kansas look a little bit less bad. So I kind of want to get your thoughts on that too, because it was I was expecting.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. It still hurts just because I do feel like that was a winnable game just on that particular night. Just watching it unfold, I feel like that's one we could have had, should have had, kind of like the Pitt game in a way. But yeah, I mean, it seems like Kansas is for real thus far. They're 3-0. Who knows? They could fall flat on their face by the time the season's over. But as of right now, they look like an impressive team. You gotta love their coach, and I agree with you. Jalen Daniels does seem like an easy guy to root for. It seems like an underdog story there at Kansas for how he emerged last year and how well he's playing now. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not rooting against him. That's for sure. He is fun to watch. But yeah, I mean, it does make the loss look a little better, but I don't know. I don't like creating excuses for a loss. They still lost that game.
Oh, I 100% agree. I said, like I said, a little bit better. I
Yeah,
am in
just a
no way,
little bit.
shape, or form saying that, we should have lost to Kansas, because I do think that we should have easily won that game. I think we have the players to do it, but I feel good for Kansas because they're in the right direction, and it kind of puts into context to how quickly a good coach can turn around a floundering program. I mean, Lance Leipold, 2 seasons at Kansas, and they're already looking like they've made marked improvements in multiple areas where, not to kind of pile on the Neil Brown hate train, but it's been 4 years for Neil, and we're still kind of talking about some of the same stuff with him. So it's good to put things in context. And yeah, I think that looking at Kansas compared to WVU is a great, case study on good coaches versus questionable coaches.
Yeah, I'm with you. That guy just seems like a winner everywhere he's been. I mean, he dominated at the lower level. He competed at Buffalo, and I don't know if he had anything else on his resume. He was at Buffalo before Kansas, correct?
Um,
I
I
think
don't
so, off
remember.
the
I'd have
top
to
of
look
my
that up.
head. But yeah, I mean that dude's a heck of a coach. And basement dwellers in the Big 12, I normally like seeing them do well. Obviously, I don't like seeing them beat our team, but I like seeing them be successful because the better the competition, your conference, the more it blusters your conference, and you know the better you look when you have a decent record. So yeah, I mean I don't mind seeing them have some success over there. But that's it for us, guys. I'm super hyped to break down this Virginia Tech game with Giovanni. So we are going to end this episode, and we're going to get him on and start interviewing him. So go ahead and hop over to the episode and see what we have to say about the Black Diamond Showdown. So thanks for listening, guys, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and we will be checking the numbers to figure out if you guys are actually listening. So please, at least listen to both episodes. It's all we can ask.
All right, later, guys.